Welcome, welcome, welcome. It is emergency press conference time. So the reason it's emergency is because here we have a couple, maybe 72 hours, possibly less, 48 hours, let's call it, to protest our property taxes. So if you're anything like me, you have delayed it. And at this point, you have to submit something. Now we're gonna go through various ways to submit your property, to protest your property taxes. But the one thing is clear that I absolutely want you to never forget to do, even if it's late, is to protest your property taxes. Now here we're running up against the 2025 deadline of May 15th, and depending on the state that in the county that you're in, it could go prolonged. So some examples, if your notices went out incorrectly, or if your notices went out late, then you have until June. So one of my properties is pushed out all the way to June. I think should have looked at this earlier. All right, no, this one is through May 15, and this one is through June 2nd, your protest deadline. So for the most part, most of us are going to have the deadline looming of May 15th, but anyway, we're going to get into it right now to make sure that we are protesting on property taxes and are doing it right. So let's get into it. Questions, comments, concerns, please feel free to drop them in the chat. All right, so let's begin. Let's protest our property taxes. We're going to cover everything end to end, make sure that we don't miss a single beat. Now, one thing to note is that we are talking about property taxes here in Texas. Now, why is this important? Well, let's address that. We're going to protest our property taxes here in Texas step by step. And let me do this. All right, that'll work. All right, so why does this matter? Why are we doing this? Why are we making this a emergency press conference? Because we need to get this done. Well, Texas has some of the highest property tax rates in the country. In fact, it's number 7. You may be wondering which one is number 1. That's New Jersey. So New Jersey has the highest property tax rate in the country. So if you're coming from New Jersey, it gets better. If you're going to New Jersey, it gets worse when it comes to property taxes. No shade thrown at New Jersey, but here it's super important that we're protesting our property taxes, especially in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, because prices continue to go up. The second thing is the average rate in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex is from about 1.5 to about almost 3%. Now they've backed off because of the rising prices and there's been a lot of changes to the property tax rates in each and every one of the cities in Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, because city boards are lowering the percentage. But even then, you're still looking at the high 2s. So give yourself about 1.5% to about tops 3%, which again, now there's been a few cities that were very, very close to getting to 3% that have since then backed off. The highest property tax rate that you're going to see right now in DFW is going to be about 2.8 roughly. But with that being said, it is a huge amount of money. So think of let's see, if it's a $500,000 home, it at a 2% interest, at a 2% property tax rate, you're still looking at $10,000 in property taxes. So just to do this at 2% property tax rate, that you're still looking at a significant amount, right? So one of the things that I want to illustrate, well, we'll talk about when to protest and all that fun stuff. So right now, why it matters, we need to save some money. So who should be protesting? We're going to get into that right now. Really, anybody that owns a piece of property. If you own real estate, whether it's residential or commercial, you need to be protesting. But for our purposes today, we're going to focus more on the residential side. Regardless if you're a homeowner, in the sense that you're if you're a owner occupant, meaning you own the home and you occupy that home, or you're an investor, both of you need to protest your property taxes and have the ability to protest property taxes. But let's go into some distinctions between the type of the difference between the two. When you're looking at a owner occupant, so if you're a homeowner that is an owner occupant, you do get some benefits through a break through what's called a homestead exemption. If you apply a homestead exemption on your home, it's free to do. It takes less than 10 minutes to do, by the way, and I have videos on this channel that show you how. When you apply homestead exemption, there is a cap on how high the assessed value of your home can go. So if your home is worth, let's say $500,000, the most that it can go is 10% more the following year. And in some cases here recently, it had been reaching that cap because home prices were increasing dramatically. So there is a cap. So again, the most that your home can go up to next year would be $550,000. Based off of this example, if you have a $500,000 home, the most that it can go is 10% because it is capped in assessed value. And we'll talk about the differences between assessed value and market value, which is a bit confusing if you're hearing this for the first time. Now, again, the reason that we're doing this is because, well, that's one big benefit to a homestead exemption, but also another benefit that is often overlooked is that it reduces your, we're going to add this, reduces assessed value. Now I'm talking about a homestead exemption. And here again, this is a homestead exemption. I want to make sure I'm clear here. So if you're an owner occupant, and I guess a better way to phrase this is, you get some benefits. You get a lower assessed value, and then you also get the cap on the assessed value rising. Now, if you're an investor, you don't get that cap, and you also don't get a reduced assessed value. That is a downside to being an investor when it comes to property taxes. Now, the benefit is that you get the appreciation from the market value, if you will, but also you're paying property taxes. Really, you're paying retail property taxes, if you will. There's no breaks. There's no exemptions for you being an investor. So at the end of the day, both of you owner-occupant folks and also investors, you want to protest your property taxes because they continue to go higher and higher. Now, what are you protesting? Now, this one I didn't think that I was going to be including here, but I did get a question earlier on today that what I was assuming or what I was already taken as a given was not necessarily in a given, and rightly so. Maybe I was just overlooking it. What are we protesting? We are not protesting this. We're not protesting the property tax rate. That's something that's going to be done through your city and the city council and all that fun stuff when they do their whatever they end up doing. So that is not what you're protesting. What you're protesting is the assessed value of your home. So the assessed value of your home is something that is the county appraisal district is going to deem your property's assessed value to be. Essentially what you're going to be taxed on. That is what you're protesting. So as an example, if your home is $500,000 and the assessed value is $500,000, then what you're doing is you're protesting that $500,000 to go lower. So you are trying to get that $500,000 to go lower to $450,000, $425,000, $400,000, as low as you possibly can get, because that number that you have is going to then be multiplied times this number right here, right? So that's what you're protesting against. Hopefully that's making sense, because sometimes it's just not as clear. So what we're going to do is, just to give you an idea, we're going to go into, if anybody's in the chat, let me know in the chat, what city would you like for us to explore? What city here in Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex would you like to explore? Because we're going to actually do this in real time in case there's some confusion. All right, so we're going to go with Irving. All right, so let's start with Irving to really deconstruct this for a second. If you don't know what your property tax rate is in the city that you're in, that is okay. Very few people do. So let's just pretend that you are in the city of Irving right now, and all you'll have to do is put in Irving, Texas property tax rate or something similar to this. I just put Irving property tax, and it gave me enough information. I gave it enough information to where it gave me an answer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to property tax information, and then I'm going to go to tax rates, and I'm going to go and see what the tax rate is in the city of Irving. So you see here it is 2.138%. This is a property tax rate, which is taken into account the city tax rate, the ISD tax rate, the county tax rate, the higher education tax rate, and the hospital network tax rate. So at any point in time, most cities are going to give you 5 numbers when it comes to property tax rates. They're going to give you the city, they're going to give you the city, the county, the ISD, the higher education, and the hospital network. Now, each one of these numbers is represented right here, but at the end of the day, it's 2.138%. This is based off of a $100 assessed valuation. So it's 2.138%. This is the property tax rate that exists in Irving. Now, each one of these numbers right here, as you see the rate, has its own assessed value. So one of the exemptions, as an example, was one of the exemptions that you have on your home is a homestead exemption if you're an owner occupant. And the homestead exemption, what that allows you to do is reduce the assessed value against the ISD tax rate. I think it's up to $100,000. I forget exactly what it is, but you're going to multiply this times the reduced amount. And what we're going to do, just to take this a little bit further, is we're going to go to let's go with one that's going to be common. Let's go to the Denton CAD. So we're going to go to the Dallas CAD, the Dallas Central Appraisal District. So here we're going to go to the CAD directly, and we're going to go find a property. We're going to go find a property right now just to get a number going. Well, it shows you how to do this shows you how to do the protesting and how the appraisal is done. But let's actually search for properties right now. Let's go to find a property by street address, and let's go to Google Maps here. Let's find a residential property in Irving. Any one of these properties is going to do, as long as it's residential. So this is a residential area. Let's say right here, this corner lot right here, whatever this happens to be. Okay. So I have no affiliation to this address. I just went and found it somewhere. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in here, and I'm going to find it. And I'm going to look at the appraisal notice, which we'll get into here shortly. And this lets us know what the appraised value of the home is. So essentially they're trying to tax this property at this particular number, this particular amount. And it breaks it down based off of these percentages that I talked about earlier, right? So it lets you know the county, the city, the ISD, higher education, and the college network. So it shows those numbers, the exact same number for all of those. Now, what the county is not going to send us is the actual. The county is not going to send us the actual valuation that they've given this property owner. So the sheet that they get is going to be different than this. This is just they're not going to give all the information away, but they are going to give you a substantial amount. So what the homeowner is getting, they're going to get a rate card similar to this, but with various numbers, depending on the exemptions that they apply for and that they get. So I can guarantee you that if this homeowner is an owner occupant, they're not paying the full amount of the assessed value of each one of these numbers here. They are going to be reduced because of the homestead exemption. Now I'm losing the plot here, so let me get back on track real quick. The assessed value. Let's talk about the differences between the assessed value. So here again, you're not protesting the property tax rate, which is 2.138%. We're not protesting that. We're protesting the assessed value. Now, the assessed value is what you are, what the Central Appraisal District is valuing your home's value to be. Your value is what the Central Appraisal District is valuing your home, and that's what you're going to be taxed against. This is the assessed value. There's something else called the market value. So this is where if you were to take this property out for sale, whatever they pay you for it is what the market value happens to be. So right now with this particular home as an example, they're saying that the value of the home, the market value, the assessed value of this home is $234, let's just say. Well, this is what they're trying to get this property to be taxed against, so $224, but the market value could actually be $250, $260, $280. These are numbers that are not going to be the same oftentimes, and what you're going to find is that the assessed value, what the county appraisal district is taxing you against, is often less than what the actual market value is in most instances. So what you don't want is that inverted. And then at that point, you absolutely do want to protest, because you don't want for you to be paying a higher valuation or the assessed value. We don't want to pay taxes on that number, because even if you try to sell, it's not worth that much. And that's where the protest really comes into play, if you have those types of that incongruency, right? So what are you protesting? You're protesting the assessed value. You're trying to make your assessed value of the home in the county appraisal district's eyes as low as possible, so you don't pay as much in property taxes. Now, when do we protest? Right now. You should be protesting right now. These notices that you get here in the mail that look similar to this right here, the ones that are blue, these are gonna be received in April, and you want to protest as quickly as possible. Now here I delayed it a little bit, quite a bit actually. I made a YouTube video on property taxes in a very condensed way that's with my editors right now. So that's why I thought, well, let me just hop on here and do a live stream to show you how to protest, because by the time I get that video out, it's probably going to be tomorrow, and then we're out another day. So I wanted to give you a heads up on how to protest right now, so you had an idea on how to do it. But at the end of the day, right now, most of the deadlines are in May 15th. Now, some of those, as you saw here, one of my properties here is pushed out all the way to June 2nd. So I have until June 2nd to protest. But for the most part, once your notice arrives, you have about 30 days, and most of the notices are going out to where they are a May 15th deadline. So if you don't protest by then you lost your opportunity to protest for this year. You're gonna have to try again next year. Now, it doesn't mean that you're not gonna be able to do it in the future. It just means that you can't do it for this year. All right. Now, where are we protesting? Well, it depends on the county that you're in. If you're in Harris County, Tarrant County, Dallas County, wherever it happens to be, you're going to go to the Central Appraisal District and protest there. So what we're doing here is we're already in the Dallas CAD, Dallas Central Appraisal District. So what we have to do is go to, this shows a protest process. So let's see where they want us to go. Appraisal Review Board, posting your value. So you have until May 15th, and it tells you what you can appraise, why you can appraise and why you can't. How do I protest? All right, so most properties can be protested online via the internet by using the U-File online protest program on the website, and then go in here. So the U-File online protest system. So here, if you have an account, awesome, log in. If you don't, what they're gonna give you is these letters that are going out to you. They're gonna have an account number at the top, and they're most likely gonna have a PIN associated to this. So whenever you log into your U-File system here, then you're able to add that to your account, this property that you own to your account. So it all starts with this piece of paper that gets mailed to you. If you don't have this piece of paper, right now it's gonna be a little bit busy, but you do want to reach out to the Central Appraisal District and get get them to resend you the piece of paper that has essentially your account to where you can view it online, or you could get their verification on over the phone. It just depends on Dallas County on how they do it. So as an example, my properties that I own are in Tarrant County, so I'm most familiar with that process. And I'm just going to type in the Tarrant Appraisal District. So you just have to Google it. So here's Tarrant. So there's the Fort Worth side of things. All I do is I click log in right now, and I get access to the properties that I own. So then I can protest on the portal itself. But if I don't have access to the online, or I don't want to do the online, these pieces of paper that get mailed to you are the starting point. It has the form, forget what it's called. It's called form something. But essentially it's letting them know, hey, I'm ready to protest. So be on the lookout. I forget what this form is what the name of this form is, but it'll have the form on the back end, so you can fill that in and submit it, so you can start the process, which we'll talk about here shortly. But basically you can do this online by going to the Central Appraisal District, whichever county you happen to be in, and you're most likely going to be able to do it online via the methods that I just shared with you. And see, I process all my property taxes in Tarrant County as an example. So let's talk about the process. The process in and of itself. Right now we've kind of already established the how, why, and all that fun stuff. But let's actually talk about the process of protesting our property taxes. All right. One second. I have something I messed up. Give me 1 second. I'm just swapping something out. All right, so we are back on track. Sorry about that. All right, so let's continue protesting our property taxes right here. Okay, now this is a process that we use to protest our property taxes, and it's going to vary based off of the county that you're in. So here we're talking about protesting our property taxes in Texas. Now again, it's going to vary. It's going to be a little bit different in the county that you're in, but not by much. So here again, overall, the big points, they're going to be the same. So when you get your appraisal notice, you're going to check the value, of course. You're going to check the property description, estimated taxes, and look for errors. So one of the things that I often overlook, and I should be a little bit better at, is making sure that the property that is registered with the Central Appraisal District, especially if it's a new build, so hear me again, especially if it's a new build, make sure that it's recorded correctly in the Central Appraisal District. So in the CAD, don't take it as an assumption that it was all filed correctly. That's a wrong assumption to have. So again, especially if you're in a new build, please make sure that when you go to the CAD, whether it's Collin County, Denton County, Dallas County, Tarrant County, when you find your property, make sure that everything is correct. Because what happens, the assessed value of your home is dictated off of a system, an electronic system that that there's no real human actually doing this particular assessment. Like, it's all done automatically. So the same way that you can't trust Zillow's home value is the same way that you can't trust the Central Appraisal District automated valuation system. So that would be a very bad thing for you to do, because you would be losing money on that. So make sure that you double check that information. But first off, just see what the assessed value of your home is and make sure that everything is correct. Now, here's where we have to start talking about gathering the evidence. So at the end of the day, what we want to do is start comparing, or this is what you actually saw in the review of the appraised value. If you're seeing this or taking interest in the assessed value of your home for the first time, start comparing against other homes in your neighborhood. Now, this is something that you'll have access to if you go to dfwhomeowner.com/taxes. We will pull up the comps in your DFW city, wherever it happens to be. We'll pull up the comps in your area so you can easily protest. That's not going to be a big deal. So again, if you need help with the protesting, all you'll have to do is just go to the dfwhomeowner.com/taxes, and we'll get those comps over to you. Now, we help our clients all of the time with this. Even though we're real estate agents, we're very well versed in property taxes, and we save our clients a ton of money simply by pulling the comps for them and also coaching them on how to protest. Like a story of Adriana comes to mind, who she bought in the northeast side of Dallas, I believe 2 years ago. And we helped her through that review process. So she started, I think her property was appraised at like 800 and something thousand. We got it down to $750,000 with the exact same system that we share with you. So if you need the comps, if you need information on the recent sales in your area, please feel free to reach out to us at dfwhomeowner.com/taxes, and we'll provide you the comps so you can protest your property taxes confidently. All right, let's continue. Now, here's the thing. Whenever you're gathering evidence, so once you get this appraisal notice, you probably get a good sense that, hey, I am going to protest my property taxes because it makes sense. And I don't blame you. That's what we're here to talk about. Now it's time to start gathering evidence, because right now we need to start looking at those recent home sales. We need to start looking at what those comparable sales look like. We need to start looking at what our home is going to be valued at. Start taking pictures of the home itself and the areas that need improvement. So as an example, if you need new windows, if you know you need foundation work, if you know that your roof is it needs some work, if you know that certain parts of your home need some work, which means that your home is, when you compare it to the recent comps, it just doesn't stack up to them. Now, here's the thing. The Central Appraisal District will give you this information. Now, you since I don't have access to this particular account that I just looked up randomly through Dallas, I'm not going to have access to those comps. But if I were to log into my Central Appraisal District right now, I would be able to log into my particular properties, and I would see the comps that the Central Appraisal District used. You have access to that information. So for you, it's very simple. You just take those 6 properties that they gave you, which most of them are going to give you 6. Take those 6 properties that they gave you and compare them against your property, because these are the comps that you have to beat. Chances are that they were pulled through an automated system like we just talked about, and there wasn't that much consideration given to them. Oftentimes, you're finding yourself compared to homes that you shouldn't be compared against to. Sure, maybe you have a similar square footage, but the area that you're in is valued considerably different than where you should be at. So use the evidence that they gave you against them by being able to disprove it. So here again, those 6 properties that they give you, you can protest. You can do your protesting based off of those 6 and those 6 alone by you comparing your property's value against those. So make sure that you take pictures of your property. Make sure that you identify what needs work. Make sure that you have even getting appraisals or bids from quotes from the trades. So if you know that you need let's just say new windows, well, let's go ahead and get a bid on that. Let's get a quote on that, so you can bring that to the forefront and present that as your evidence. And then we're gonna file the protest. This is where you get this document and mail it in, or you go online and start submitting the protest. Submit it to the Central Appraisal District, so you can either get a negotiated offer. So once you log into your Central Appraisal District website, many of them have an automated system to where you can do an online negotiation, and you might not even need to take it all the way to protesting. There's many of those Central Appraisal Districts that allow that. So as an example, yesterday, of the 5 properties that I own, I was able to protest and successfully negotiate down 4 of them. One I was not able to. That one I have to go in and actually do the formal protest myself. But all in all, I think of the properties, I think each one of them I averaged about $25,000 in reducing the assessed value of those properties. So if you do the math on that, that's $100,000 in property tax assessed value that I dropped. And in the average property tax rate that I'm in, I saved $2,500 in property taxes alone on those 4 properties. So it's worth doing, and it's worth doing again and again and again, because this compounds. You're dropping the assessed value for this year, but you're also going to be dropping the assessed value for next year, because your anchor is so low that when those property taxes come around, especially if you have that cap on there. So if you're an owner occupant with a homestead exemption that applies that cap, you're consistently under what everybody else is. So that's how you start saving thousands and thousands of dollars every single year. But anyway, you're going to file your protest, which is very simple to do. It's just going to ask you a few questions. So here, it's just going to ask you for the address. It's going to ask you for your contact information, what you believe to be incorrect with that, and what you believe the value of the home to be. And then your preference on if you're going to do it in person, or if you're going to do it, the protesting that is, or if you want an informal hearing, which again, if you do it online, I prefer that you do it online. Most of these Central Appraisal Districts have an online feature. You can negotiate back and forth very easily. So that's what I would prefer that you do. Now, you also have the option to do an informal meeting. You don't have to take it all the way to the appraisal review board. You don't have to do that. You can actually meet with somebody and do an informal hearing, where it's going to be, as the name suggests, informal, where you can do this online, you can do this in person, but here you're essentially getting to a potential mediation before you actually go into the formal review board and present your case. So this is a bit more conversational. This is a little bit less alarming, if you will, but at the end of the day, this still is something that does require your prep work. So you want to pull in the comps, you want to have your pictures ready, you want to have your number of what you believe your home's value to be ready at this informal meeting. So where in this informal meeting, they either agree to your valuation or your assessed value, or they compromise somewhere in the middle. So again, if you file online, chances are you can use their negotiation portal. If you don't, and you opt to, or they don't give you that option, you can go straight into the informal meeting, which will be done again pretty more flexibly, and also it's gonna be less intimidating. But in the event that either you choose not to do an informal meeting, or nothing comes from this informal meeting, you can go straight to the appraisal review board and have that discussion there. So let's talk about the meeting, the famous meeting that gets set for you. So this is something that once you submit your protest or your appeal, you say that you want to have a protest, you will be given a date. It's typically going to be emailed to you or sent via mail, depending on how you said you want to get communicated with. And in this review board, so at this hearing, it's going to be at the Central Appraisal District. So you're going to go in person more often than not. And it's going to be quick. You're going to get at most 5 minutes, and your partner, well, let me set the scene. When you get there, You're going to pull your ticket. You're going to register. You're going to say that, hey, I'm here for my review, blah, blah, blah. And they're going to say, awesome, you're in the blank and blank block. So you're going to walk into a room. It's going to be very dry room. Regardless of where you're at, it's going to be very, very, there's not going to be a lot of art. Let's just put it that way. So you're going to walk in and you're going to have the individual that represents the appraisal board, so the Central Appraisal District. And you're going to have 3 individuals, 1 to 3. You actually get to select that, but most of you are going to go under in front of a bench of 3 people. And this is going to be the review board. These are homeowners that were appointed that are going to be sitting here and hearing your case. So when you walk in, what you want to do is you're going to provide your copies of the CMA, the pictures of the condition of your home, of any bids or quotes that you received. You're going to provide these packets to the appraisal district, the representative that is doing that, representing the appraisal district, the 3 individuals that are part of the review board. You're going to present them the packets, and you're going to keep your own with your own notes. And you have 5 minutes at most to present your case on why the value of your home should not be $500,000 and it should be $420,000 as an example. And you want to have all this documentation in place. You want to have reviewed this, and you want to have practiced this, so when it comes time for you to go, you're ready to go, right? So there's not going to be a lot of formalities. It's just going to be straight to the point. Now, after you present your case, it's time for the representative for the appraisal district to go. They're going to rebut your points more often than not, and or present their own facts. Then you're going to get, I think, like 2 or 3 minutes to refute that or whatever, and whatever they ended up saying. And then the review board is going to go ahead and say yes or no. They're essentially going to give you the yes, we believe it to be this value, or no, we believe it to be less than that, or no, there's going to be no change. So it's going to be one of those 3. But at the end of the day, you're going to get a resolution at this hearing. So this is where it can stop. Now, at the end of the day, if you still don't agree on the valuation that's been presented, you can appeal. This is something that you have access to. You're able to appeal the final verdict in the event that you go in there and they don't budge on any other on the assessed value. But overall, it is absolutely worth protesting your property taxes. It's something that does not need to take a ton of time from you. It's something that can be done in a short amount of time, and if you know where to go and where to look. So if you're looking for comps for a DFW area, just go to the dfwhomeowner.com/taxes, and we'll help you pull up those comps so you can protest your property taxes in the appropriate timeline and give you a good opportunity of actually winning. But if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Also, don't forget to hit that like button, and we'll see you on the next video.